Hey you, come, gather around the campfire, and welcome to the party. This is Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where we talk about everything we love in the JRPG world and other Eastern titles. I'm your host, Cameron Hawkins, along with my party partner, as always, Kevin Kenson. Kevin, how you doing?
I am doing well today. I'm a little stressed, like in a good way. I'm going on a trip soon, but there's a lot of things I gotta get done before I leave. So today and tomorrow is a little hectic, but then hopefully I don't have to think about work for a couple days once I go.
I am also stressed, but for completely different reasons, because I'm really hoping that this Sunday, Kansas City pulls off the first ever three-peat in the history of the NFL. That's why I'm wearing my Kansas City shirt for this episode. Like, just gotta give all the love that I can leading up to it. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Japanese games and Eastern titles and all that jazz. But before we get into the news for the week, we're going to do some housekeeping. If you've been enjoying the show and you would like to show us some love, why don't you pause that podcast really quick, this podcast to be specific, and go to your platform for podcasting of choice and give us a 5-star review. Go to YouTube, search Party Chat, give us a sub. All of that really helps with exposure and all that jazz. Would really appreciate it. You can also support us on Patreon if you want some goodies, some rewards, including getting the episode early a day, an exclusive Discord where we talk about JRPGs and other things, as well as the Campfire Catalog podcast. Our first episode is going to be on Chrono Trigger, where we're just going to talk about our experience with that game and bring on a guest or two that are very knowledgeable on the game, make it kind of serve as like a history lesson, book club, all that jazz. And we also have a monthly Q&A, which our first episode we dropped last week. So it gives you the opportunity to ask us really any questions in and outside of games. And we talk about it with each other. So that's that. And also go to youtube.com/Kevin Kenson and give him a sub there so that we can get him to 1 million subs before the end of the year. It's the year of the Switch 2, so he's going to be making a lot of great content over there. So check that out.
Hell yeah.
First, we're going to go into the news. Today, as of recording, which is Tuesday, February 4th, there was a Capcom Spotlight as well as a Monster Hunter Wilds showcase. And where we got some new information, we got some new news. That's what those are for. We got a little bit of new news for the new Onimusha Way of the Sword game. That was announced back at the Game Awards, and along with an Okami sequel. And they basically just showed us the Okami sequel trailer again, which was really funny. But then they actually gave us a little bit of details on Onimusha. We know for a fact that the game's going to take place in Kyoto, and we know that it's going to star a new protagonist. I'm not super familiar with Onimusha. I don't know if every Onimusha is a new protagonist. Kevin, are you super familiar?
Yes. So not every game is the same protagonist. They do have one that's a little more reoccurring than others. Samanosuke, he was the main character of 1 and 3. Well, 3 he shares it with another character that's played by Jean Reno, which was a whole thing. Yeah, he's the same main character in those, but 2 was a different main character, as well as 4, Dawn of Dreams. So they have one character they've used a little more than others, but it's not that weird to have a new protagonist this time around.
Okay, cool. And speaking of older Onimusha games, Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny, a remaster, has been announced. It's coming later this year, and it's going to be on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and Steam.
Sweet.
What are your thoughts? How do you feel about Onimusha 2 in the Onimusha verse?
2 is good. It's kind of the one that I think gets a little mixed reception because it is a little different from the others. It's actually really, the first one's very short too. What's interesting about 2 is that while it's a little short, it has a lot of plot branching based on how you build relationships with these characters. There's these 4 supporting characters, you can give them gifts and talk to them and stuff. And depending on who your lead person is, some parts of the game change where they show up and help you out, or you even play as them for a little bit. And so there's a lot of replay value in it. Like I think when you beat the game, you actually get like a timeline chart thing where you see what exact route you took, and then you'll just see all the blank spaces of other things that could have gone down. It's a really interesting one. I think it's not quite as focused as like 1 and 3 are. I feel like usually when people talk about like really enjoying Onimusha games, it's one of those. But I think 2 is excellent. Like, great series. I'm excited.
Do you think Onimusha 3 and 4, there's 4, right? Do you think those are going to eventually get remasters as well?
I think so. I hope so. Because depending on how far out this next one is, like they have the time. Not that like remastering is something they can just do overnight, but it's not as intensive as a whole new game from the ground up. So we already have one remastered. That was a few years ago. And then I forget what year it was. It was like 2019. It's been a little while since the first one. It was a long time,
which is why I'm kind of surprised that Onimusha 2 is getting a remaster. Because I was like, oh, like I guess the first one didn't perform well, or like I knew that there were. I actually didn't know there were 4 of them. I thought there were at least 2 of them. So that's also surprising to me, or just like, new information.
It's an interesting series because like it really is one that almost entirely lived and died on a single system. Like all 4 games are on PS2. They never got on PS3. There are a couple side games. One of them was another PS2 game that was a fighter. They did like a Smash Brothers style platform fighter where it was like characters from across the franchise, also like Mega Man Zero and a couple other characters. It was wild. And then there was like a GBA tactics game. So this is a series that
I heard about that one. Yeah.
But this is a series that really started and ended in like less than a decade. Like it just did not. They were like, we did it. We made all our games. Cool. Moving on. So it's cool that it's back. I'm excited.
Okay. Alongside that, Capcom Fighting Collection 2 got a release date. It's coming out on May 16th for PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and Steam. And for those that do not remember, the games included are Capcom vs. SNK, Millennium Fight 2000 Pro, Capcom vs. SNK 2, Mark of the Millennium 2001, Capcom Fighting Evolution, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, Project Justice, Power Stone 1 and 2, and Plasma Sword Nightmare of Bilstein. I hope I said Bilstein right.
I think so.
Bilstein?
It's one of the two. I'm not sure, to be honest, either. That's also one of the ones I haven't played. I think I've played half of these. I never got around to Capcom Fighting Evolution. I heard it was not great, at least compared to some of the other crossover fighters. Love me some Capcom vs. SNK. That's fantastic. Love those. Power Stone, I played, but I never played like extensively. I never had my own copy, and like that was like the friend had it, so people would play when we were all at their place. But I really enjoyed it back then, so I'm excited to like be able to give it some fresh eyes. Never played Project Justice or Plasma Sword, but
I remember when I was in the SGF showcase, like at the YouTube theater last year. I was with my buddy Charlie Wackles, and the Street Fighter 6 DLC trailer started. And we saw the SNK, and then we were just like, is this Capcom versus SNK 3? We were freaking out. We were shaking each other like
you were not the only ones. I think I did the same thing to like Paris or Danny. Someone was sitting next to me from Gamertag Radio, and I also freaked out, thinking the same thing. I think I even talked. I was talking to Joy, who co-hosted that year, and I think she was like, "Yeah, when I saw the early version for a moment, I thought we were getting like I thought it too for like a split second."
It needs to happen eventually, but I also think that Tekken Cross Street Fighter needs to happen eventually. But
finally,
also, like Tekken doesn't need to do it, but they have it. Like it's a part of the deal. Like they're sitting on that forever.
Yeah, because the first one didn't do great. Partially because of how they positioned it and did some microtransaction BS with it. Like it was actually like
I really like Street Fighter Cross Tekken. I really like that game.
And they really just messed it up in the end with a lot of weird choices. That'd be cool. Sense. I just love Capcom crossovers in general. We've had a couple that I think left a bad taste in Capcom's mouth. Like, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was not great. Like we said, Street Fighter Cross Tekken did not do great either. So I think they wanted to like back off it for a little bit, but I think it's just because those specific games, the execution was flubbed. It wasn't the concept. There is like demand. There is interest in these. We just need them to also be good.
Speaking of Marvel Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics is now on Xbox. They announced that was coming eventually as well, which is cool as someone who likes to play on Xbox. I have my PS4 copy. I got my physical copy, but it's nice that it's on Xbox too now. Regarding Monster Hunter Wilds, they had like about a 20-minute, 15-minute presentation. At least it felt like it was about that long, and they announced a few things. They showed off a new region called the Ice Shard Cliffs, along with 3 monsters: the Harabami, which is new to the series, as well as the returning Nurskyla and Gore Magala, which I think Gore Magala is like a series favorite.
It's like a staple. That's a big one.
A lot of people are excited about that. And then they also showed off the new flagship monster called the Arkveld. I would give you a description of this creature if I could, but I don't really know how to describe it. It's just, it's just like the Nurskyla. The Nurskyla is basically a spider. Like, I can tell you, like, oh yeah, it's like a spider-like monster. The Arkveld is just like some furry guy, some furry dude.
It's kind of a mix of, like, because I'm looking at it right now, like it's like a dragon, but it also has hair and fur, but also the body, the way the coloration is, the scales almost look like they're rock or granite. It's a really interesting design. Yeah. There's not a great single word descriptor for what I'm seeing here.
Alongside that, there are going to be private lobbies in the game, which I don't know if that is a thing before. Like, I mean, I know that you could invite players to play, but I guess private lobbies have always been a thing, right? Maybe I just never saw it that way. Am I dumb?
I don't have a great reply to this because I'm not sure I've thought about that much either. We've talked about this. Like, we've both played Monster Hunter, but neither of us are like...
I'm just going to say, to be safe, just private lobbies exist.
Yes.
I'm not going to say whether it's new or it's old. Private lobbies exist. There's going to be a photo mode, which you get to play in a new online single-player mode, where, like, you can basically make it so that there's no interactions with other people. You can kind of do your own thing. But if you are in like a snag, you're in a bind, you can still shoot up a flare, and that'll instantly put you like into multiplayer temporarily, so that people can come in and help you. So it's like, it's cool that it has that flexibility for those that care about that. And then lastly, as it's already been announced, there's going to be a second open beta test that starts. There's two of them throughout the month of February. February 6th at 7 p.m. Pacific time to February 9th, 6:59 p.m. Pacific time, and then February 13th, 7 p.m. Pacific time to February 16th, 6:59 p.m. Pacific time. And one of the cool things about this is that, one, it has crossplay, so you don't have to have a specific system to play with your friends. And you don't need PlayStation Plus or Game Pass to participate. Also very cool. So Monster Hunter Wilds continuing to look like a easy Game of the Year contender for this year.
Oh yeah, I mean unless something is severely wrong with that game at launch, like if it is what Monster Hunter tends to be, it's a contender. It would take some wild releases this year, I think, to like knock it out of at least running.
Yeah, it would have to be a really strong year, I would say. Next story, Nintendo releases new unit sales numbers, with it being the end of the fiscal year. I basically have a bunch of new updates on unit sales, and I also have some fun facts that I found online today that I want to share as well. So, some updates here. Nintendo Switch Sports sold 2.63 million this fiscal year, with a total of 15.74 million. Let me just say, I was unfamiliar with your game, Nintendo Switch Sports. I was unfamiliar with your game. I was shocked. I was not besmirched, perclept. I was perclept. That is perclept the right word? Can I use that word?
Well, what do you like? I don't know what emotion you're trying to get across just yet, because you've said a couple very different words. What are you like surprised by?
Yeah.
Like how good it is, or what? Like what, or how well it sold? What's the surprise here?
I was trying to use a stronger vocabulary because of how strongly I feel about this. I didn't know it sold like that. I thought like maybe 3 to 4 million.
Yeah, look, man, there's a lot of name power to Wii Sports. Like that's like Wii Sports was such a big deal in the Wii that like I get it, but like there's the runoff from that then where like everyone who had really fond memories, even though Switch Sports isn't like a direct continuation with like the same games or anything, I think that it just has that like association where people are just like in it. It's also like a good like it's there's not as many titles on the Switch, I think, that leverage being like the motion control focus type thing, and this is one of the few that do. So I think, especially when it's like kind of like the family household fun multiplayer game to play where you're swinging stuff around and risk breaking a TV, like that's what it's there for.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, here's the thing. That game came out and no one fucking talked about it.
Oh yeah, no, everyone was like, "Oh, this is okay." Like it didn't. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. 15.74 million?
Because
it is the 11th best first party title on the Switch.
Yeah, because again, we follow and pay attention to what people who are like terminally online or focused in the space do.
I know,
and this is being picked up by like people like all the other Switch owners out there that are just like keeping it like it's a good fit.
That's the thing though, is that like I go to stores, I look at the physical shelf because I collect video games, and I see that stacked with Nintendo Switch Sports.
Yeah,
it's not like it's sold out all the time
because people are buying digital, buddy. I'm sorry.
But no, that's bullshit. Because I'm going to tell you that later. Because that's bullshit. But we're going to continue on.
I mean, the segment of the audience.
Everyone remember this point that Kevin's trying to make here. So, okay, next game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, 2.07 million fiscal year, 15.5 million total. It is, I believe, the 12th. It's right under Nintendo Switch Sports. Super Mario Party Jamboree has sold 6.17 million since it's come out last year. Echoes of Wisdom, 3.91 million. Since it came out last year. Thousand Year Door, 2.06 million. This is also something I didn't write this one down, but this is something that's worth mentioning. So I saw a chart showing off the lifetime sales of all the Paper Mario games, and outside of Color Splash, which I kind of don't count because it's a Wii U game and like not a lot of people bought a Wii U. Guess what the worst 3 selling Paper Mario games are?
I'm guessing you're about to say this is one of them.
It's Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door on the GameCube, and Thousand Year Door for Switch.
Yeah,
that is why they're like, oh, people don't want the turn-based combat.
Well, and that's also.
And guess what? Super Paper Mario. Well, I guess it makes sense because the Wii was a huge deal, but Super Paper Mario is the best-selling by a significant amount.
Because the Wii had a massive audience, which like we'll see if this one over time catches up. But like, yeah, it's a little disappointing. Like, this one obviously it's still growing. It hasn't even been a full year since release, I think, right? It was last year, or did it come out?
So there was a fiscal like a quarterly fiscal update because it came out earlier in the year, right? So there were fiscal updates. The last fiscal update, or like fiscal quarter, it was like, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, it was like 130K units, maybe. Like, it wasn't a big amount. You know what I mean? It's like
so it still has time to grow, but and like, I mean, the GameCube one makes sense because like GameCube is just
3 million. If it hits 3 million, I would be surprised. I would be surprised if it hits 3 million, or I would be like, that's it. There's no way it's going more than this. Anyway, next one is Mario and Luigi Brothership has sold 1.84 million, which is pretty good considering it came out in November. And it's again a turn-based RPG. And then Luigi's Mansion 2 HD has sold 1.8 million, which I'm kind of surprised by that. I honestly thought that it would sell better because Luigi's Mansion 3 was so good.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't finished Luigi's Mansion 3, and that's mainly just because like I don't prioritize first-party Nintendo games as much as I should or want to. But Luigi's Mansion 3 is probably in my top. I don't know if I'll go say top 5, but it's in my top 10 like first party Switch games. Like, Easy.
Yeah.
It's so good. I think it's one of the most underrated games on the console.
I mean, it's one of the best looking on the Switch. Like,
Oh,
period.
yeah.
Like in terms of like getting
Visually
the most
stunning.
out of that system. Like it's honestly wild that game looks as good as it does. Like,
Yeah.
great showcase of what you can do with optimization.
Yeah, it's really, really great because that was the game that basically made Nintendo acquire Next Level Games, correct?
I
Am I?
don't know off the top of my head.
I
do
believe,
wonder
I
though.
believe it was like after that game came out is when they finally
Yeah.
like actually acquired them.
It does make me wonder if, with these being relatively low sellers, if the issue is also like interest in remasters, remakes.
Yeah,
How
maybe.
they're positioned in marketing. Because like, yeah, like Thousand Year Door did not do fantastic, and neither did Luigi's Mansion 2. So I wonder if it's just people are like, it's also like last year was a full year. Like there was a lot,
Yeah, that's
and there's
true.
only so much that like some people are gonna pick up like every single thing they can, but there's plenty of people where, you know, I'm buying one game this month. I'm buying one game for the next 3 months. What's it gonna be? Not gonna be the remaster of a GameCube game. Tell you that.
Yeah. So to be clear, because I looked it up while you were talking, Luigi's Mansion 3, as of latest update, has sold 14.25 million copies, while Luigi's Mansion 3 has done 1.8, and
HD.
this last quarter was only 230K. So, you know, it might break 2 million. I don't think it's going to do anything after that, but like that surprises me. I know that it came out on the 3DS and 3DS was a successful console. That still surprises me. Anyway, so I want to shout out Pier485 _ on Twitter, because I came across where they made like these extensive graphs and charts, statistics regarding all this Nintendo stuff, and there were some things that really wowed me when I like came across some of the stats here, and I want to read some of these off really quick. So, Tears of the Kingdom has now sold 21.55 million copies worldwide. It is the second bestseller in the franchise, and 57% of 3D Zelda games sales were made on the Nintendo Switch. That's crazy!
That doesn't surprise me that much, to be honest. Like, how many 3D Zelda games are all on this one platform, and 2 of them are Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? Like,
But 57?
yeah. Well, keep in
that's-
mind, right? 3D Zelda games. So not
Yeah.
including SNES, not including NES. Look, I love the N64 and GameCube. They were not heavy sellers in the grand scheme of things. Like, the audience size for those systems wasn't huge. The Wii probably has like the highest percentage of 3D outside of those. And so like, with how successful the Switch has been and how many 3D games are on it, like, I mean, like, especially again, like Breath of the Wild, huge.
Yeah, but oh gosh, that's just, again, and maybe it's just because I'm not a Zelda guy,
Sure.
and I know that 3D Zeldas in the grand scheme of things, like, I feel like while Zelda games are obviously like really good, I also feel like that always felt that Zelda was bigger than it actually was because of the fans, because of how like loud the fans were. And so yeah, maybe that's it. Next thing, Animal Crossing New Horizons now totals 47.44 million copies, 60% of the entire series sales. This I believe a lot more. This one's like not as surprising.
Yeah.
Because
COVID.
New Horizons was a phenomenon in a way that we really didn't see on the platform, and like I personally feel like most people really only like the original Animal Crossing, or technically the GameCube Animal Crossing, right? Because there was one on the 64 that didn't come
That
out
we
in
never got
America.
Here. Yeah.
So like I can kind of understand it there, but that's still like really impressive. Next up, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has now sold 35.88 million copies worldwide, representing over 46% of the franchise's sales. That is surprising to me, just because Smash has, outside of like, you know, arguably 64, Smash has kind of always been big. And so I'm really surprised that they were able to take that much. Like, say what you will about Brawl, but like Smash Bros on the Wii, like
Yeah.
Had sold like crazy, and then on the Wii U, and the 3DS, 46% is very surprising.
That's big. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm surprised it's able to take it that much up because of specifically Brawl. Not that Brawl is amazing, but it's on the Wii, and the Wii's potential audience was gigantic. I mean, the Switch is even larger now, but at the time.
Next is Super Mario Odyssey, is the best-selling 3D Mario game, and it ain't close. It ain't close. It has sold 29.04 million units, and the runner-up is 3D World and Bowser's Fury with 13.47 million. So they over double the amount of units sold. Do you have any thoughts on this?
It just looks like there's this trend for sure of as big of a success as the Wii was, it was not moving as many units for its first party. Just looking at how 3D Zelda and 3D Mario are totaling up here. And the Switch, I think, is hitting that balance of huge audience, but people are also really investing in the first parties, a lot more, clearly. Because, you talk about how much of a lead the runner-up has. The runner-up is also a Switch game. That's not the previous version, because that Bowser's Fury is the Switch version specifically. Yeah. So that Switch is clearly a time where they're hitting that balance.
Galaxy was huge when it came out, though. Galaxy was huge when it came out.
But huge in terms of circles and people talking about it, but clearly not in terms of raw sales data versus what the Switch can do. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently not. It's just it's really cool. Between the 3 Mario Party games on Switch, they make up 48% of the series' total sales. I feel like that this is impressive simply because there were
how many?
Despite the success of the Switch, there's been 10 Mario Party games prior to the Switch
that are numbered, right? Prior to the Switch, yes, yeah, and
yeah. If you're not including the 100, the Mario Party 100 on the 3DS or whatever, so that's also really surprising. Yeah. Now, here's where I'm going to clap back on Kevin here,
and here's where I'm going to disagree because I know the statistic. You think I don't pay attention to Switch stuff? Anyways, here we go. Let's talk the statistic.
So when it comes to all software with a physical version, digital sales represent 30% of the overall sales.
Absolutely.
So to me, when I see something that's continuously on shelves, I'm going to be like, oh, this game must not be selling that well.
Because again, man, specific audience. Switch Sports that's one of those titles that's going out to a larger group of people who are totally fine buying digital. The 30% of people that are buying digitally primarily versus physical are the kind of people that probably are buying Switch Sports.
But you don't think that a majority of the people that buy Nintendo Switch Sports are the casual gamers, the gamers that don't really keep a whole lot in touch with anything that isn't Zelda or Mario or Mario Kart, those kind of staple type games that for me, I would be oh, these people are going to be buying physically because they're either going to be gifting these games or they're going to be or they just know it's easier, they don't want to deal with the digital aspect of buying a game. I just think it makes more sense with my from my logic, from my point of view, that they would buy physically over digitally.
Maybe, but I'm just thinking in terms of people that are family households just picking up a game digitally and not wanting to deal with having to walk up and swap a card out just to play a different game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of on the opposite end.
Yeah, and there are absolutely, and don't get me wrong, there are I don't want to paint a picture as if everyone who likes Switch Sports is just the the casual gamer or whatever. No, there's absolutely longtime fans too, and people that just want to buy as much as they can on the Switch. But I think part of why that one has the success it has is because again, it's the Just Dance energy a little bit. You know what I mean? It's a fun thing for the family to play because of the motion focus.
Yes. No, I agree. I agree with you on that, and I think that. Also, a lot of the early sales of this game were people that were just expecting this to be a new Wii Sports.
Yeah.
And whether it completely met those expectations, that's up to the person. But I haven't played it yet. I actually haven't played. It's one of the few games in the first party library that I haven't bought yet. I need to get on it, but so I wouldn't be able to say. It
Yeah.
looks fun when I play. I'm like, this looks fun.
I
Like,
had a good time with it at launch. To be honest, like I don't. It's one of the situations where I feel like it's probably very good in like couch co-op multiplayer kind of situations, and I'm just not doing that as often these days. So like I haven't really broken it out since the initial like, oh, I got it. Let's check out the games, and then I, haven't booted it up since.
so this is the last fun fact, and I really want to know your thoughts on this, Kevin. So Nintendo's distributed 53.7 million Switch games this quarter. That's over 1.36 billion games on the platform to date. On average, 9 games are sold for each Switch system on the market to date. Now, before you respond to this, I want to say that like through the Switch's lifetime, I have bought 4 Switches. And like, and I know you bought more.
Oh yes,
And
100%.
And like for me, it doesn't sound as crazy because like I collect games. Like I definitely have more than 36 Switch games on my shelf. But just like thinking about that in the wide scheme of things, I'm like 9 games per system. That's crazy to me.
That's a lot of attachment. And like sure, you could also say, well, the system's been around for a while. That's we're hitting 8 years soon, so like that's a game a year. But obviously, not everyone bought their system right at launch in 2017. This is all from steady accrual over time. That's a great attach rate, and as you said, there's going to be those outliers like you and I where you've bought multiple systems, but also if you're the kind of person who's bought multiple systems like this, you've probably also bought a lot of games to balance out that, figure of keeping it 9 per.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I've purchased 5 Switches. I've purchased 5. I got the OG Switch. I got the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee one. I got the all red Mario one, which I still have. I got the OLED, and then I got the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom one. So those are all 5 that I've gotten.
I don't even want to think about how many I've bought, which I did rehome. Like I have found new people to have and enjoy and love those systems. I don't like them.
Yeah,
just
you
sitting
made the
on shelf,
content, and then you're just like, okay, who can I sell this to?
Yeah, or even just gift. A lot of them have ended up with like cousins and nephews, that kind of thing.
Oh, nice. Okay. Next
yeah.
story. Expedition 33 is getting a movie adaptation. This
What?
was reported by Variety. Developer Sandfall Interactive is working with Story Kitchen, who has helped with the creation of multiple film and TV projects like Sonic the Hedgehog and Tomb Raider, The Legend of Lara Croft, along with upcoming projects based on games like Dredge, Streets of Rage, It Takes Two, and Just Cause, just to name a few. There's no director, no like really creatives attached to the project as of yet. This is just like, hey, this is happening. So, yeah,
That's wild. That's
it's wild because the game hasn't come out yet.
That's happening all off of like a trailer, and like
That
sure,
being-
it could
Go
be
ahead.
like a director or someone involved just saw the concept and went, oh, that's a cool concept. Like we could just like let's make this like a dreamy film. Like I could see that, but that's also banking on a game that like we don't even know what the reputation's going to be post launch.
Yeah.
Like I'm excited for it, and I want it to be great, and I want it to have like an audience if it is like awesome. But we just don't know that yet.
It's very possible that they showed them the game first, right? Like that they like played
Sure.
like a rough cut of that game, and they're like, oh, this has the sauce. They might have gotten that inside scoop like that. But from just a story premise, very cool.
Yeah.
Very excited to play the game, and hopefully, the movie's good too. Speaking of movies, Sleeping Dogs is getting a movie adaptation with Simu Liu in the lead role, as reported by IGN. Simu Liu went to social media last week to say that he was working with the quote working with the rights holders to bring Sleeping Dogs to the big screen, end quote. There was already a planned Sleeping Dogs adaptation with Donnie Yen in the lead position for like years now.
A long time.
Funny
yeah.
enough, Story Kitchen was behind that project as well. But he did recently say, he has said previously that has ultimately been scrapped. A source close to the project confirmed with IGN that the project is indeed in development, with Liu playing the beloved character Wei Shen. Liu also shared that if the project were to be greenlit, he would reach out to Donnie Yen and Will Yun Lee, who was the voice of Wei Shen in the game, presumably to get them involved. This is dope. Sleeping Dogs is a super underrated game, and I really love that game, and I think it makes a lot of sense for Simu Liu to be in that like lead. You know, we've seen that he can do it with Shang-Chi and like he can do it.
Yeah, and I certainly think, as much as I love Donnie Yen, making this movie right now,
Dude's old.
Dude's old. Like he can do the stunts, he can do the work, but it's just like Wei Shen needs to be like a younger guy, just like depiction wise, you know. And so, yeah, I definitely think that casting's cool. I didn't realize Will Yun Lee was the voice for Wei Shen. That's cool. I did not put that together before. Yeah, be great if they get to be involved in some way. Always down for cameos.
And then the last story, which is a quick one, because it only kind of applies to Japan. So if you're a Japan listener, yay for you. I'm jealous.
Our
Farland
stats show we
Saga
have
1 and 2. What'd you say?
I said our stats show that we have 0 so far, but
hey,
if you're hearing that, you're the first one possibly. If you're hearing that,
yeah, so. You might be the first one. You might be the first listener. Farland Saga 1 and 2, Saturn tribute, has been announced for PS5 and Switch, and is coming to Japan. These were Sega Saturn JRPGs that are getting ports, which is cool. Not a whole lot of information has been revealed about it, but they did mention City Connection, which I believe is either the company that's publishing or the company that is like developing these ports. That new features include a guide function that displays easy to understand information during battles, such as items, magic, and both ally and enemy stats, as well as a function that doubles the experience points acquired. No news on international release. There's no news on any international release. So.
I wish I knew more about this game to talk about it. Saturn is such like a blind spot for me. Like, I just didn't grow up with a system, and by the time I realized and found out there were so many cool games that came out on Saturn, it got expensive. It is not cheap to collect Saturn right now. Like, I don't know if you've looked at like trying to get into that library. Getting a good working system and games, it's not pretty. Like, even by already bad retro game price standards, it's not pretty. There's so much cool looking stuff there. Like that's if I've really got the disposable income at some point, like I'm catching up on some of these, like just to know, because like there's so much cool style and look to that era of JRPGs that just like I know nothing of firsthand.
Yeah, I don't know jack shit. I don't know any of that stuff, but I'm also just like, just port them, just port them over.
Yeah, that too.
But that is the news for the week. We're gonna hop into really quick what we've been playing this past week. Kevin has not played anything. I have not played anything that I can discuss as of right now. But I did, or to be clear, what I want to talk about, I can't talk about right now. That's what I'm trying to say.
And to be clear, I can say that I have been playing a ton of Avowed. That has been my past week, which I realize is a JRPG podcast, so it's not really the purview for that.
Yes.
I can't share thoughts either about it, but it is what I've been playing a lot this past week, is what I can say.
Yeah, so we've both been busy working on basically reviews for games, but I can't disclose what game that is, and Kevin can't talk about Avowed. But I did go hands-on and played a bit of the first Berzerker, Khazan. This isn't a preview. I don't know why I said hands-on, but I played the demo. Anyone can download this demo right now if you want to do that. And I downloaded this game, one, because friend of the show, Ben Starr, is the voice of Khazan in this game. Always want to show love to him. And then the other reason is because I didn't really know what this game was. I knew it was in the DNF universe.
Yeah.
I knew it was an action game, but I didn't know what kind of action game it was. I knew nothing about it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to download this demo and check it out and report back to y'all. And it's pretty cool. It's It's probably the closest I have played to something in the same vein as Sekiro, where like it is very Souls-like. It's very much a Souls-like, or it has like bonfire type vibes, like
Sure.
same all
There's that
that
style of
stuff.
progression and checkpoint system
Style
that
of
like
progression,
yeah.
all of that stuff is the same. So you have your souls. I think it's called like Lacrimosa or like something like that. That's what your souls are. Um, and you have like your health orbs, your potions. You have all that stuff. So if you like Souls likes, this is definitely worth checking out. Again, the demo is available on all the systems except for Switch. I don't think it's on Switch. And basically, enemies have like a health bar and a posture bar, more or less, a stamina bar. So everyone has a stamina bar like you do, which is pretty cool. But to get it down, you either have to like hit them enough with like the right moves, or you have to perfect parry their attacks. You have to perfect block their attacks. And so like depending on so you have like three different types of attacks. You have your normal attack, which they call swift attack. You have your heavy attack. I forgot what it's called. Something blow, potent blow. I think it's called potent blow. And then you have like your charged attack, where you have to charge your heavy attack. And so depending on the enemies that you fight, there's certain like enemy types that are more effective to certain moves. So if you fight someone with a shield, like you want to use a heavy attack to like make their stamina bar go down. If you run into like a big guy, you want to use charged attacks more so to get them to get their stamina down. Because the thing is that's interesting is that like I will perfect like there's this one guy, big guy with like a spear or a halberd. It's probably a better accurate thing. And I would perfect block his attack, and then I would just like do normal attacks to try and to just deal damage to him. But like very quickly, if you're not attacking him like with the right attack, his stamina bar will go back up. Like you hitting them, no matter what, it'll go down a bit. But like there's like certain moves that will like are like the right moves that you're
Right.
supposed to do, but it still has that Souls like element where like, do I have enough time to charge this attack, land this attack, and then either dodge or block his next attack?
Gotta get those reads.
So it really
know.
is this kind of push and pull of figuring out the enemy's movements and things like that makes it fun. And then if you do get their stamina bar down, similarly to Sekiro, you don't auto kill or you don't like take a full bar of health away. Because I haven't fought in a boss, so maybe it is like that during a proper boss. But with these like kind of mini bosses, or any other enemies that aren't a boss, you just do a crap ton of damage. You do a brutal attack, and then with like a mini boss, if they have like half their health left, they're probably still going to live. You have to like kind of rinse and repeat until you kill them. You don't need to kill them with a brutal attack, but that is like how you get just like a wide amount of the damage done. And so yeah, it's cool, it's fun. I didn't die at all during my playthroughs, except for when I fell to my death because of some breakable ice floorings. Because you start in like on a snow mountain and stuff. But I never died in combat, so I take that. I didn't finish the demo yet. I'm still working through it, but I've played a good chunk of it, and I'm just like, this is really fun. This is a game I could see myself playing. Like again, I'm very particular with my Souls likes. I'm probably one of those weirdos that like I'm not super crazy about like all the FromSoft ones. Like I love Sekiro.
Yeah.
I played Elden Ring. Like this is an incredible like achievement in just game making for sure. I don't like the actual combat doesn't really grab me a whole lot.
I mean, to be honest, like I really like FromSoft Souls games, but the main reason I love them is like has nothing to do with combat. You know what I mean? Like, because that's even my thing where I have some friends where like they got super into Neo, and I'm like, I didn't really care about Neo because Neo's combat is I think a significant improvement. Like, it feels better to play in terms of combat.
I've heard that.
I don't really care about Neo's approach to exploration and lore building and stuff. Like, I don't like it's like, oh, you go to levels and like the story's like not like straightforward, but like it doesn't really like work quite the same. Like, I love Elder Scrolls for like the way the storytelling and exploration vibes feel, and combat is kind of incidental to me.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see that. But yeah, because I've played like some other Souls, like Lies of P. I've really enjoyed what I played of Lies of P.
Lies of P is great.
And this is another game where it's just like, I dig this. Like it's not not like amazing or anything, and like I don't really know anything about the story really. Like all I really know is that this Khazan guy was this great general that is basically being put into like exile because of I think he was basically like wrongfully accused of something. I forgot what exactly it was. And then this just unknown evil entity, it seems like, takes over his body and is like, oh, we're going to fight now. And so I'm like, okay, I don't really know much of the story that's going on right now or anything about this world in a real way, because again, this is in the DNF universe. But the game's really fun to play. I dig it. I want to play more of it. So who knows? I might check it out at some point this year. Or if I might see if I can get a review code for this game, depending on when it's coming out, because, the next few months are an absolute shit show. But yeah, because I'm trying to see if there's actually a release date for this game yet. Because I think it's in the first quarter of this year.
I think so. That sounds familiar to me.
It looks like it is coming out March 27th.
Yeah.
So
first quarter.
Yeah. So it's out of February, where like a lot of the big stuff like Yakuza and Monster Hunter are going to be somewhat out of the way. Monster Hunter will still be playing, but there should be room to play some first Berzerker Khazan. You know what I mean?
I got to get through 2 Suikoden's first.
Oh yeah, that comes out on my birthday too. That's funny.
Yeah, I always remember that because it's the day after mine. So I've been calling it a birthday present to me, but it's really to you. I know.
Wait, your birthday's on the 5th of March?
Yeah, we're a day apart.
No, did we know this?
We did know this.
I totally forgot. That's so actually funny. Yeah. That's funny. We have to have like a birthday episode like where we're both wearing like party hats and stuff. We got to go all out now. We've done this.
It's required.
This has to happen now. But yeah, that's the first Berzerker Khazan. We're gonna go now into the topic of the show. Topic of the show. It's the topic of the show.
I'm working on a jingle. Don't worry. We're going to have an official version at some point. I might even just clip us saying this right now and turn that into the intro every time.
No, don't do that. So what we're going to talk about is our preferences between like set design characters when it comes to combat, when it comes to gameplay, versus customized characters where you kind of just get to make whatever you want. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I mean, like, right tool for the right job kind of thing. I think there's some games where I like it and some where the implementation gets a little more iffy for me. Like, I think when I think of custom characters, right, a series where I think it didn't work as well for me, it wasn't like a bad thing, but Dragon Quest IX. Because, like, Dragon Quest traditionally is you have your set main character. Like, that's who you have. And 9, it does have, like, the silent protagonist, more subdued, kind of less, like, personal... you don't really have a personality or anything. but you also are fully customizable. Like you pick different hairstyles, you make your own favorite Toriyama. Like basically, it's like, do I want to look a little bit like Vegeta? Do I want to look a little bit like Gohan? Here you go. Do I want Trunks hair? Like those are your options. And like, it's neat that you get to make them, but I actually didn't like. I'm not sure how much it added to me for that game. You know what I mean? Like how big of a role that had versus, where there is a little bit more personality. Some of the Fire Emblem games, like Awakening, lets you make your version of Robin, and like I think it works there because there is more like an actual character you're trying to bring to life.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It depends on kind of like what the type of game you're looking for, or what you want, or what you look, what you want in a JRPG. And again, I think I've very much been spoiled by the Trails series, as in a way where like in the Trails series, I really try to not bring up Trails, but it's really hard not to. I'm gonna go with the Sky game specifically. Is like it in general, these characters have crafts, which are basically like physical abilities, right? That they themselves do, versus arts, which are like all through the ordnance system and things like that. And when it comes to the crafts, the crafts are just so personalized and just like ooze personality, and it just like strengthens like that the character in and of themselves. Like it's those moments where like the characterization is like implemented into the gameplay.
Sure.
And we see this even recently in like a lot the I love the team up attack with like Barrett and Aerith in Rebirth, where they put the glasses on together and like it's just and they always have like such a charming like kind of personality with each other, and I love that. It's just like it just makes that aspect of them stronger.
Yeah. So you're talking more about like actual like customization in the sense of ability loadouts and stuff, not like making a custom character.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand. Like I think like so when you like you make custom character, but then you're also probably going to have to you also like because here's the thing. Initially, this was pitched as like, oh, set characters versus like class system versus custom.
Okay,
and I think
so that's
that,
okay.
Yeah, and I think that like those things kind of go hand in hand. I think that like when I think about like custom, I think about class system. Like yes, there's going to be certain character like they might have some things where there is a class system and there are these like set characters, but normally like the main cast are going to have unique classes that are only to them.
Sure.
And at that point, that's just a set character in my mind.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying like with in Trails, there's no like class system. These are just like certain characters. Like yes, they're a part of certain organizations, but those things like don't affect their abilities or anything like that. But like in Trails, in the Sky games, with my favorite character in the series, Olivier, he's this wandering charismatic bard, and one of his abilities is that he basically tosses like a bouquet of roses in the air, shoots it, and then it heals everybody. And it just like adds to the charisma, it adds to the charm of that character, where it's like, oh, if you play like Bravely Default and it's just like, oh, these characters are this class, and you're basically like building these characters from the ground up, or like Final Fantasy V or something like that.
Sure.
It just like takes those aspects away. And those are things that I think like those are things that like I don't need or don't like or aren't like expected from a JRPG, but I give it so much credit when they do it. Like I give them like so much bonus points for like, oh, you didn't have to do this, but this rocks, and like I love that you did this. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I see what you're saying. And I think actually, to go back to one you were mentioning earlier, Final Fantasy VII, specifically the remakes, because that was actually a thing that I've known a few people to have mixed feelings about with original 7, where like the materia system is cool and all, but especially when you're coming from like right off of 6, where there's some customization with what spells people learn, but they all still had a very specific identity with like, Terra can do the transformation, you got Edgar with the tools, Sabin doing your blitz inputs. The limit breaks vary from everyone in 7, but like that's kind of where it ends. Like their base stats are a little different, and maybe you can lean them in, but ultimately whatever material you equip,
do anything.
Yeah, the material is ultimately all that actually matters for playstyle, and it's mostly flavor of who you like, or you're min-maxing your limit break choices. Whereas Remake and Rebirth change that. You're like, yeah, you still have materia to customize things, but there's a much stronger identity for each character right away. Whether that's, Barrett having ranged attacks actually really means something this time around. It's not just like, hey, same damage from back row, great. It's like, no, there are flying enemies that are a headache to hit unless you're playing as Barrett. Or having certain combo abilities that are useful against specific enemy types when you're playing a certain character. So like, that's something I really appreciate about 7 Remake versus the original, is that you had this custom loadout focus initially in the original version, which was still good for that game, but this approach still has that light customization, but really drives home like each character feeling like they're a specific unique character to play as.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, but I also don't think that there's anything bad about having because it's not super black and white, right? Because you look at like persona protagonists, right? Like, yeah, they have a set persona that they start out with, but you can get rid of that persona pretty quickly, pretty immediate, and then you're just like the kind of wild card Joker, if you will, where you can have like any of the personas, while your party members have set personas, and they have to, like, that's what you're dealt with for the whole game, and you can still make a compelling character for combat and story in ways like that. I just think that, like, because I guess like the way I see it is, having just played like Final Fantasy 1 and then Final Fantasy 2, right? Like Final Fantasy 1 is like that these are just these 4 travelers that you get to make from the ground up. You get to name them, you get to choose what class they are, blah 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 blah. I had like absolutely no real connection or ties to these characters.
Right.
But then Final Fantasy 2 happened, where it's like, hey, you have these 3 characters, they're your party throughout most of the game, but you can build them how you want. Like, you can build them any way you really want. Anyone can use any weapon. Anyone can learn any spell. And so that does give you that, like, that ability to be, like, creative and choose what you want, right? Like, I had my, like, Firion was, like, sword and shield, like, traditional. Like, he's the main character. He's, like, the hero type guy. Like, sword and shield traditional. And then Maria's, like, okay, like, she's gonna be like the mage, and then Guy is going to be like this two-hander who's just going to, like, have like kind of like the best weapons as I progress through the game, and then you just have like that ability to just like have conversations with people. It's like, oh, like, how'd you build your party? Kind of like Metaphor, right? Like, oh, how'd you build your party in Metaphor? Like, who's your archetypes, and like which archetypes did you give what character? Like, people think I'm crazy because I made Heisme my healer. Right?
You are in fact crazy, yes.
But then our friend, one of our friends, Dan Reb, he had Hulkenberg be the healer, and that's crazier. That is crazier than Heisme. That's crazier. You cannot tell me.
Yeah, well, that I think also brings me to this idea too of like, when we're talking about like custom ability sets for characters, right? I feel like it's harder to do it well in situations where you have characters with strict personalities, because you get into like wanting to just make them fit a role that makes sense to you, right? And like Metaphor does that a little bit, where everyone has like their initial main focused one, and it's kind of implied that you should focus on those over time, and it's like reinforced even more so later eventually. but it also runs into those situations, right, where it's like, well, I need a healer, so I need to make someone the healer, and I've decided it's this person, and then you get to have arguments with your friends over who thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. It adds to the conversation, and it like gives you that that unique experience that like
Yeah.
you're not gonna, everyone's gonna have a different experience than you, because like the likelihood of everyone doing everything the exact same way as you is very small.
Yeah.
And so there are perks to that side of things too. I just think for myself, I care about story, I care about like the characterizations of the characters and the party and things like that I like having like set characters with like unique abilities that only they can learn, because it just like adds to it has the potential to, at least, to add to the characterization of that character, and just add that like more like pizzazz, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
It's using the mechanics to reinforce like character archetypes and personalities and like bring that to life a little bit, And that's the thing is where I think, while I'm not opposed to characters with the personality having like customization and class systems, I definitely want there to be that little bit of nudge of like, you can do what you want, but maybe this person should be doing this, like just which like Metaphor does a little bit. But I look at something like 12 with the Zodiac version, because the original version of 12 used the license board system, which like was kind of like Sphere Grid but not, and everyone just kind of developed however you wanted. With the Zodiac version, which is if you get the 12 remaster, that's what it uses. You pick a person's class when they first join. And then they have like a specific license board for that class. And it's kind of a headache to me sometimes, because then I'm just like, well, what feels right for this character though? Like, I'm not going to make Bosch the mage, right? Like, I'm not doing that. But like, I think it's something like Final Fantasy X, where there's the Sphere Grid, where characters have like a specific starting position. Eventually, if you want to take the time, you can have them spread in different directions and really like customize and expand in different ways. But ultimately, like, Lulu's gonna be a black mage. Like, that's just how it works at the start. The only one who's kind of a weird one is Kimari, and I actually don't like how he was implemented, because like the center position's kind of weird in that game. But like, that's an example, I think, where like you have that ability to customize, but there's still a clear immediate style for that character out the gate, versus again like 12, I'm just bashing my head against the wall of like, I need to have party balance, but also I don't really want this character to be this class. It just feels weird.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do like when games do kind of push you to a certain, like, hey, you should, like, this is probably the recommended path to go. If they are going to do any sort of personalization with things, right? Like, because I mean, I feel like if you, because I would even argue that Final Fantasy 2 does that, right? Like, where Maria does kind of come across as like, oh, this is the character that I should make the magic person, and then like Guy is like, again, because of his personality, he's kind of like this stereotypical like, oh, I'm super strong, I'm super buff, but I'm not super intelligent. You're gonna be the heavy hitter, right? Like, you're gonna be like the more tanky character. And I think that like I don't mind when games, I prefer when games do that, but even when it's like these games that aren't as like character heavy, I guess, where or if you just like start out with like any odd character that like you can just be like, hey, do what you want from the ground up. Like, you don't have to do it, I don't need that push to go a certain direction.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, everybody, sounds like that is the end of our topic of the show.
No, there's got to be like, hold on, there's got to be something here where like I'm trying to think of some other like interesting examples in games that like walk that line in interesting weird ways. Because then like I re-examined what I was saying at the start with Dragon Quest, because I was definitely interpreting today's topic wrong at the time. But like Dragon Quest 9, where you have like the custom class setup for everyone. And that's an approach you see across like Final Fantasy V, Bravely Default. It's interesting how I think those games sometimes try to wire the characters to be a little more jack of all tradesy. You know what I mean? Like Bravely Default, there are some light personalities in place, but you can kind of interpret anyone as anything for the most part, too. You know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's perfectly fine. It really just kind of, I feel like for myself, like hypothetically, I do not think that Dragon Quest 3 would be as impactful of a story or of like a game as much if there was hypothetically like no hero, right? It was just like a party of 4 mercenaries, because like, you know, it is a hero and then the 3 mercenaries that you get to choose of, like, because at that point like it's just kind of like a blank slate. Like these characters don't really have any personality. They're all like silent protagonists, like that type of thing. And like I still really, like, for example, like I really like Final Fantasy 1, and this is kind of what I was saying, like it went on in the first episode, is like I want to care about the world that I'm trying to save.
Yeah.
And in Final Fantasy 1, I didn't.
Sure.
I was like, you know, that criteria was not met.
Yeah. Ye 4 heroes.
I still think I had fun.
Yeah.
I still think I still enjoyed that game a lot more than I thought I would. But in, you know, versus like Final Fantasy 2, where there were like all of these like major events happening every once in a while, and like there were significant things happening to people as you progress through this game, and you know, about halfway through you kind of get a tease as to like what's actually going on. Like it's the, you know, they're I don't want to say it's obvious, but I also think that it's not far from missing it. Like you definitely could have gotten it, you know what I mean? And so when it happened, I'm just like, oh, this is actually super interesting now. Where are we going to go from here? And like, there's all these aspects in the story that made me be like, oh, I actually like care about this world and these characters in a way that, like, if I were to play, you know, something like Final Fantasy, where there's like no heroes, like no like named characters, no real dialogue, or like things that don't make it interesting for me. Because like the thing with Dragon Quest 3 is learning about Ortega, learning about like the history of the hero's dad and like how he impacted the world, and then the things that you go on that journey. Like those were the things where I was just like, and then you get to like once you like complete the objective you're given at the beginning of the game, and like this whole other thing happens without going into spoilers. It's like, wow, like I really care about this stuff. Like I really care about this world. And so that's like the thing. And those are the things I come to JRPGs for. Yeah. And so I don't mind, again, having like no named characters and like not a lot of dialogue. But I also think that you need to do a good job at making me care about this world in substitution of that.
Sure.
Because if and you know, and also just like making the gameplay fun, right? Because that's like what we're ultimately talking about, is like the customization and set characters in the terms of gameplay. Yeah. So that was really long-winded, and I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. But like, I think that makes a great point about that. Like when you have, you know, we started off focusing on this idea about how like ability sets and stuff set to reinforce a character archetype, but how you can have characters that are free of that to an extent and still have it work, like with the Dragon Quest 3 hero, you know, like you're still connected and grounded in the world, even though he does have a set ability type because he's just a hero, and then the rest of the party's where customization comes in. Although you still get the personalities to tweak your stats a little. Yeah. All right, we're good.
So there's you know, it's a really like it's a really expansive topic to really talk about. To be honest, the more that we're talking about, it's like, wow, there's like just so many different examples of what
Yeah.
you can go off of, and ultimately, as this topic and all of our topics are for the most part, it's all based off of our own experiences and like all our own preferences, right? Like I have friends that love simplicity.
Yeah.
They want their JRPGs to be as simple and straightforward as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And in a certain sense, I get that, but in another sense, I'm just like, that sounds like boring story. Like that sounds boring to me. You know what I mean? Like, so it really just kind of depends on how everything is executed. It depends on how, again, gameplay. It's like gameplay versus like for me, again, like if a game is supposed to be like super good, if they say like, oh man, this story is so incredible, yada yada yada, but the gameplay is mid or like not good, I'm really gonna struggle to get through that game. Again, Nier Automata. Don't want to be like, I'm not trying to be a Nier hater, but that game is not fun to play. It isn't, like, at least when like the normal combat. Like I think some of the mini games and like the when you're using the ships and you're doing like the shooting stuff, like that stuff is pretty fun.
Yeah.
But the general like action of that game, I don't think is fun.
It is the okayest platinum action game, but where it shines is how it throws those mini games at you out of nowhere. Like that's the fun of that game to me, is that like half the time you're thrown to a mini game, you don't even know that's about to happen. It's just like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now. Okay.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those points I'm trying to make that like, as long as it helps it's good gameplay, and ideally it adds to the narrative, it adds to the story, it adds to the characters in some way, then that is like the best of both worlds for me.
Yeah.
But again, like I also know that it's not something that is expected. Like, because again, just like not a whole lot of franchises do it. And and like granted, I think they should do it more, but I just go into a game. It's just like when you play games, right? And as time goes on, you play more and more games. You kind of have like this equilibrium of like where, I don't know if I'm using the right word, of like where your kind of minimum expectations for a game are met.
Mm.
And then and when you play more and more games, that changes, right? Like that's why I say like, when I started the Trails series, it ruined a lot of other JRPGs for me, because I think to myself, like, why couldn't this game do this like Trails did it? And so like that changes my expectations, where it's just like, oh, this 20-year-old series that I've played all of these entries for has been doing this for years now. Why can't I find more JRPGs that do this, or that do this one thing, or do like something about it that I really like? And just the reality is, it's just like, it's just not I don't know if it's just like we're not there as an industry, or if it's just like, or what it is, but it's just, you just have to kind of reel in your expectations on like how often you're going to run into not just JRPGs, but games in general that are going to meet like the highest of your expectations, I guess is the best way to explain it.
What?
What?
No. Yeah, we've had some tangents. That was a big tangent.
Listen, I wanted to stop. To stop, and we kept going. So
that's fair. That's my fault. It's my fault.
No, but it was just something that I think about when it comes to it goes back to what our main topic was. It's just like, you have certain set expectations, but like sometimes you have to also like realize that like, though, like the highest of your expectations are not always going to be met, and you shouldn't like go into a game with that headspace, because then you're just always going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Like always, always be open to what a game is experimenting with, and like seeing how its take differs from what you may be used to, and like maybe how that works better or worse in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm done. We're done talking about it because now I really feel like I just went on a big rambling ramble. So
You're
I'm
good.
just gonna
You're good.
no, yeah. So we're gonna wrap things up here. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Party Chat. Kevin, where can people find you?
You can find me just under my name, Kevin Kenson. You can find me there on YouTube, major social media platforms, all that good stuff.
You can follow me at Cam Final Mix, where my thoughts are a lot more concise and constructive. And until next time, catch you later.
Later.